that's it for the video. Support Nord if you want to support us. Thank you to them for sponsoring. Link will be down below. With that said, let me know what you think.
Yeah, just be careful when you say that, because somebody like me might actually take you seriously. I loathe the idea of defending Blizzard, and Ian has a clueless. But the idea of a well-respected and valued leader of the WoW community, Belluar, shooting his mouth off with a complete disregard for fairness, objectivity, and research is despicable and irresponsible. Maybe I'm wrong for holding Belluar to a high standard in the first place, a journalistic standard. But over the past 2 to 3 years, Belluar's videos greatly served the WoW community as highly informative WoW content, worthy of imitation as well as respect. His videos consistently demonstrated professionalism and a reasonable balance of fandom, objectivity, and fairness, but that's no longer the case. Lately, Belluar has been uploading a relentless barrage of videos with a domino effect of negativity directed at the WoW devs and Blizzard. Do they deserve saltiness from Belluar and other WoW influencers? Yeah, I kind of think they do. But keep in mind, criticism, when administered with fairness and objectivity, is an important ingredient in order to achieve greatness. Prior to BFA, I referred to Belluar as a Blizzbot. Blizzbot is a term I coined for a WoW influencer who's drunk on fandom, regurgitates WoWhead news without adding any perspective or personality. That's a Blizzbot. They are the choir, Blizzard is the preacher, and any form of criticism is nothing less than blasphemy. From the start of BFA up until about a month or two ago, Belluar consistently proved me wrong. And now, well, the pendulum has swung in the complete opposite direction. Equally as useless as a Blizzbot, and with just reckless abandon, Belluar regularly overdoses on X-Lax and dumps on the WoW devs over and over and over. And just when you think it's over, he does it again. There's literally, and I'm not saying this figuratively, literally no end in sight. Now, I've isolated one of the many recent Belluar Why I Hate WoW and Maybe You Should Too videos. And in the interest of time, I broke this rebuttal into 2 parts and edited out several clips where I'd like to offer a different perspective, a more objective and fair perspective. Sometimes I do realize edited clips lose their original context, which is why I linked the original Belluar video in the description.
When we talk about World of Warcraft, right, we usually talk about it in a bit of a bubble, don't we? Because we talk about what is WoW doing right? What is WoW doing wrong? How are we, the players, reacting? And so on and so forth, off in our own little bubble, in our own little corner of the internet. But what, as a community, we rarely address is how external factors impact World of Warcraft. How the world and the other games in it threaten or inspire World of Warcraft.
WoW content creators, fanboys, and the Blizzard devs often do speak from the confines of a bubble. And that's a big part of the reason why Shadowlands is mired in its troubled state, why it's just stuck in a muck of mediocrity. In any form of art, there are 2 kinds of creators. There are trailblazers and pavement layers. Trailblazers tend to be innovative and embrace risk. Pavement layers take a bad idea or a mediocre idea from someone else and fine-tune them and make them truly great. Blizzard has always been the latter, there's no question of that, which means they operate at their best when they borrow, or in some cases steal, ideas from other MMOs. That's when Blizzard's at their best. Vanilla WoW came from the womb of the Blizz developers' passion for Ultima Online and EverQuest, popular MMOs from the late 90s, early 2000s. Belluar knows WoW's history and fails to bring up this very important point about the inspiration for WoW. Blizzard is constantly stealing and or borrowing things from other MMOs. The big problem here is there hasn't been a lot of innovation in the MMO genre over the last 10 years or so. As far as threats go, there have been a slew of former WoW killers over the years. Age of Conan, Warhammer, and WildStar no longer exist. Others like Rift and Arcage barely show a pulse at this point. But there are a few MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, Elder Scrolls Online, who have demonstrated various degrees of success. The influence of the WoW killers might be a sum of the parts is greater than the whole sort of thing, because over the past 10 years or so, we've witnessed WoW's subbase dwindle from 10 million to an estimated 2 to 3 million. The big question here is, why doesn't Blizzard recognize the threat to their MMO market share and do something meaningful about it? Belluar doesn't offer an answer, but I will. Building an MMO takes a fat amount of cash, a gangster roll of C-Note times 10,000, a king's ransom. Just 10 years ago, Swoder, one of the former WoW killers, cost $200 million to produce. Imagine what the cost would be today. Blizzard not only fails to realize they are the tortoise in the hare children's tale, they completely miss the big picture here. If Blizzard goes down for the count for a period of time or slowly fades into oblivion, I do not believe a single MMO will be the reason why. Not a solitary MMO. WoW's death will be from 1,000 paper cuts. A couple of MMOs will split up WoW's market share. A strong argument can be made that that's already happening with Final Fantasy XIV and ESO. And over the next 6 months, 3 other new MMOs are going to be hitting the market. New World, Ashes of Creation, and Guild Wars 2 may start chipping away even more.
Because if patch 9.1 and 9.2 don't provide proof of a change in direction, what's going to happen is that Blizzard will find that they have burnt a lot of bridges, that a lot of goodwill will be gone by the time 10.0 rolls around.
In the past, active subs and game box sales used to be the metrics for an MMO's financial health and growth. Free-to-play, MMOs, and microtransactions changed the whole playing field. Today, the gaming industry's new and improved measuring stick for success are MAUs, monthly active users. I don't know how bean counters derive the bottom line percentages, but I do know a certain percentage of MAUs translates to a microtransaction, and microtransactions equals revenue. The cold hard truth is Blizzard does not care what BNet game you play as long as you play 2 to 3 BNet games per month. Why? MAUs. For example, last month, if you played Shadowlands, WoW Classic, and Overwatch, how many MAUs is that? Correct answer, 3. That's the main reason why Blizzard doesn't mind breaking a golden rule of marketing by bifurcating their customer base. 6-7 years ago during WOD in multiple videos, I said WoW ran on the fumes of goodwill. Let me give you an example why I was wrong then and why Belluar is wrong now. Raise your hand if you are or were a Game of Thrones fan, whether it's the books, the series. Raise your hand if you're a fan of Game of Thrones. I think we can all agree, generally speaking, Game of Thrones Season 8 sucked donkey balls. But if I told you HBO hated the way the show ended, they didn't demonstrate their best and they want an opportunity for redemption. GOT Season 9 will premiere in 2022. Would you be curious enough to watch? I certainly would. The sales pitch to the fans is relatively simple and always the same from Blizzard. They say, we understand how you feel. We don't like the direction we're going in either, and we're committed to change. Sound familiar? That's what they've been saying for the last 15 years. They pledge they'll fix this, improve that, maybe throw in a new shiny toy here and there, nice mount. Frustrated and bored WoW fans, they tried Age of Conan, Warhammer, Ion, Terra, Swoder, Guild Wars 2, Rift, WildStar, ESO, Arcage, Final Fantasy XIV, Black Desert, and then disappointment settled in. None of the aforementioned MMOs reach the bottom rung of their expectations. The new WoW XPAC sounds great, so suddenly they give WoW another shot. And I really don't believe I'm wrong here.
Square Enix are basically moving in for the kill, with a new expansion trailer, a 60% discount to their entire game, that comes with 30 days of game time, and their recent, extremely successful and shockingly emotional fanfest. They have got a veritable army of happy players who are proudly inviting other people to join their game. They are actively evangelizing.
Remember, Blizzard isn't really as concerned about long content droughts as much as the players are, because Blizzard views content droughts as an opportunity to play Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, WoW Classic, BC Classic, Diablo, because they are 100% focused on MAUs. It's funny how Belluar uses the phrase Final Fantasy players are actively evangelizing Final Fantasy XIV. During WoD and Legion, while Belluar was actively evangelizing WoW, I consistently pointed out Blizzard's change in philosophy, putting money over fun. Back then, I pointed out the writing on the wall and spelt out the existential trouble for WoW. The videos are all there. You could read the comments. I got absolutely eviscerated for it. And I was right. By no means am I smarter than everybody else. I assure you, I definitely am not. If anything, I've been around the block, I've been to the puppet show, and I've seen the strings. Back then, the main reason, pretty much the only reason I took issue with WoW, was because the part of the game that I love the most, PvP, happened to be in a rapid decline. Participation in WoD dropped a solid 30 to 40% from MOP, and then literally, and I mean literally, fell off a cliff in Legion. PvP participation in BFA took a dead cat bounce. But in Shadowlands, the numbers soared through the roof. And that's not according to me, I'm not speculating. Ian Has a Clueless said it in a recent interview with Preacher. Right now, a part of WoW that Belluar loves and adores is lacking. And he literally rages about it 4-5 times a day in 4 or 5 different videos for weeks now. Belluar forgot the simple fact that people play WoW for more than just the lore. And during WoD and Legion, I kind of forgot people play WoW for more than just PvP.
Blizzard are, of course, used to fighting off competition in the market. They released Classic the Burning Crusade on the same day as Elder Scrolls Online's new expansion. As an example, that's, of course, despite players complaining about it being too soon. You know, about the pre-patch not being long enough. They knew people wouldn't like that, but they clearly knew, or at least in their own heads, that ESO had to be fought.
You don't fight ESO or any other MMO by releasing new content at or around the same time. Yeah, that's part of what you do, but that's not your real big punch. The best way you fight them is by making your new content innovative, engaging, and fun. Is Blizzard doing that? No, not really. They're not. You know, a gaming company is very similar to any given sports team. No matter what, the hardcore fans are going to show up in the stands. That's a given. The rest of the seats in the arena or the stadium, the majority of them are going to be filled based on whether or not the team wins. Same can be said for a gaming company. If a game is innovative, engaging, and fun, players are going to flock in droves to that game. Once again, Belluar completely omits a much bigger reason why Classic BC came out when it did. Blizzard needs something big to facilitate second quarter MAU numbers for Wall Street and their precious shareholders. Shadowlands 9.1 and Diablo will cover the third and fourth quarter MAU numbers respectively. This is the nature of the beast of a publicly traded company like Activision and Blizzard. Quarterly numbers and shareholders always come first. Maybe back in the day, before Blizzard merged with Activision, that was not the case, but it is now, and it has been for years.
New World is a new MMO coming out in August, and while Amazon are absolutely shooting themselves in the feet at times regarding monetization, there's no small amount of hype for that game, and yes, even from some of the WoW community. We've got Ashes of Creation, another major game for the WoW community. They actually moved their alpha start date away from the Burning Crusades launch, but that's a game with loads of attention from the WoW community. Then, of course, you've got Elder Scrolls Online, which has just slowly been building momentum and adding to the game over many years.
Grab a pen, try and keep up. Here's a list of former WoW killers. Age of Conan, Warhammer, Ion, Rift, Swoter, Guild Wars 2, Wildstar, ESO, Archeage, Final Fantasy XIV, Ion, and of course, Black Desert. As I said earlier, death by 1,000 paper cuts. That's going to be WoW's fate. None of the aforementioned MMOs dethroned WoW, but as a whole, they slowly and consistently did chip away at WoW's player base. And if Belluar actually did a little bit of research, he'd discover WoW's biggest competitor is actually League of Legends. The graph of League of Legends' ascent is almost in perfect sync with WoW's decline. And guess what? Riot Games is working on their own MMO. Yes, New World is quibbling over how to monetize this and that, but the issues are a lot deeper, riddled with delays. New World was originally slated for release in May of 2020. Then they switched it to August 2020, and now it's August 2021, so just a couple of months. That's a longer delay than Shadowlands patch 9.1. And it's a good news, bad news sort of thing for New World. The good news is they're listening to feedback and tweaking the game. The bad news is they don't have a track record. And if anything, they're establishing a bad track record with all these delays. But here's the biggest concern. Only pre-orders receive beta entry. That's a really bad sign for any given RPG or MMO. Same can be said for Ashes of Creation. They've been consistently pushing back the alpha. The idea they push back the alpha solely because they don't want to directly compete with Classic BC is absolutely ludicrous. Shadowlands 9.1 hits in late June. New World Beta hits in July, pre-orders only. Then, New World is scheduled for launch in late August 2021. Oh, and Guild Wars 2 as well as Final Fantasy XIV are slated for new XPACs in the fall, as well as Diablo. So, if Ashes of Creation really wants to avoid all possible competition out there with the release of their beta, why not just wait till 2022 or push it back to 2023 or 2024? I mean, that sounds about right to me. And here's a great example of what happened with every single WoW killer, with the exception, and I have to be straight and honest here, with the exception of Final Fantasy XIV, ESO, and maybe even Guild Wars 2. It's Ferrari versus DeLorean. Back in the early 80s, John DeLorean, entered the sports car market with a bang. A DeLorean was going to be the new and improved Ferrari. The hyped up sports car sure did look like one, but it didn't drive or handle like one. There were production delays, lack of value for the astronomical ticket price, and mechanical defects absolutely wrecked DeLorean's reputation. After all the hype and dust settled, DeLorean's legacy is nothing more than a Back to the Future meme. Same can be said for the list of the majority of the so-called WoW killers.
Square Enix have spent the last 10 years, since Final Fantasy XIV's literal calamity of a launch, building and improving in the game, listening to the players. So that when you log in, you have got 10 years of great game to play. Because FF does not throw the old stuff in the bin in the same way that WoW does. And you know what's really funny? The savior of this project, Yoshi P, he forced the developers to play World of Warcraft. That's what their homework was when he came in to fix the project. They were playing Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria while they were laying the foundation for Final Fantasy XIV's rebirth.
It's interesting that Belluar completely fails to address the significant reason why Final Fantasy XIV experienced success with a relaunch in August of 2013. I think that's kind of an important thing to say, and either he doesn't know or didn't bother doing his research. For someone who is such a huge fan of Final Fantasy XIV, I am shocked he doesn't know the reason why they succeeded. Square Enix did a massive player survey of all their games, specifically Final Fantasy XIV, through an independent third party. The fact is, the initial player survey back in either 2011 or 2012 proved to be such an immense success, Square Enix repeated a less detailed version of the process a few more times. During WOD back in 2015 and even 2016, while Belluar was busy evangelizing WoW, I strongly suggested Blizzard should survey their fans through a third-party company and fix WoW. Instead, perfectly fine with doing the same old song and dance, Blizzard took in player feedback from betas and PTRs without qualifying a player's agenda or gaming experience or endgame of choice. Much of the time, such antiquated feedback offers a lack of depth, purpose. You get stuff like, this sucks, this needs to be fixed, just useless information. And if and when players do offer Blizzard detailed feedback, Blizzard has no way of qualifying how much of an issue or how much of a problem or shortcoming something may be. And they don't really know how many people are behind the fact that this is a big problem. They have no way of qualifying, they have no way of quantifying, and that information definitely matters a hell of a lot.
The development team does not seem to care about what players want. I said seem and purpose. Emphasis on seem, because they obviously do care about what the community wants, but they're clearly unable to act on it quickly. A great example of this is the new customization options that were one of the most hyped things about Shadowlands, that were very well received. So seeing all of that after Shadowlands launch, Blizzard then said that they would not be focusing on customizations for the foreseeable future.
Okay, let's be real here. WoW's character customization options, even after 2 upgrades, still leave a lot to be desired, especially when you compare it to other MMOs. Pretty much every single MMO out there, except maybe RuneScape. You know, Belluar is 100% right here. Gotta give a gold star for the refrigerator where one is earned and deserved. I mean, WoW players definitely want more improvements on character customization, and Blizzard is not oblivious to this fact. That's something I disagree with Belluar. The question is, why doesn't Blizzard do more of it? Why doesn't Blizzard do more of what the community clearly and unquestionably says they want? And I keep coming back to the same answer when I ask the same question. WoW's game engine is very limited. Take a look back at the dev notes from the WoD beta as well as the Legion beta. Not so much during BFA or Shadowlands. The words update and upgrade are splattered everywhere. And here's what I deduce from all this. If Blizzard is going to add a new major system to the game, whether it's something technical or something cosmetic, it's a 2-step process for the most part. It's upgrade, then program. Because after all, this game engine goes back to the alpha, which goes back to Warcraft 3. You're looking at a late 90s, early 2000s game engine that's over 20 years old. That's part of the reason why we don't see more content or content even more often. You know, back in WoD and Legion, I trumpeted the merits of a new game engine for WoW. WoW's graphics don't suck. That's not why I want it. WoW Classic and BC, otherwise, let's face it, WoW Classic and BC Classic immediately dispel the argument that the graphics for WoW suck. People flock to those games, they're much worse graphics, so graphics are kind of overrated. We don't see more or character customizations, armor dyes, breakaway environment, or more content in general because the game engine is very limited, especially when you compare the age of WoW's game engine with its competitors all across the board, all the former WoW killers with the exception of RuneScape. Don't want to pick on RuneScape, but I've been claiming the WoW devs seem not to care since the end of MoB. And back then, instead of putting more time and money into WoW, Not the entire bankroll, but just more money. Instead, they delivered 3 new titles in HOTS, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, and Overwatch. I think the philosophical term Occam's razor comes to mind when I try to find an explanation for all this. It states that if an event has 2 possible explanations, the explanation that requires the fewest assumptions is usually correct. The answer is simple here. The WoW devs do absolutely care, but they care more about creating a game and producing systems that encourage MAUs. And that's probably a directive from the top. They prioritize MAUs is because if they don't, they eventually might lose their job or they'll be excluded from any possible promotion in the future. That's the reality of a massively publicly traded gaming company like Activision Blizzard.
We should be worried about the quality of the World of Warcraft development team's decision-making if they think that Conduit Energy is something that should remain in the game. Even though Conduit Energy doesn't matter to most of us, in principle, there is a big issue here. We need to start talking not about the symptoms of problems. We need to start talking about principles.
Conduit Energy is not a huge design flaw, not even in principle. If you want to discuss design flaws, we can discuss design flaws. We can discuss garrisons and Asheran and WoD. We could discuss artifact power, or at least the setup of how that was first delivered in Legion, along with PvP templates in Legion. And of course, we can't leave out BFA with random Azerite gear drops and random DPS procs. And as far as BFA is concerned, Blizzard doubled down on a terrible idea by adding more DPS and gear drops full of RNG. The fact Conduit changes cost 1 Conduit Energy is a complete and total non-event. No one is going to unsub because of it. No one's game is going to be incredibly hindered or compromised as a result of it. Conduits are not much unlike the old glyph system. There are a few differences, and I think those differences are a greater issue. Those differences include you need to randomly acquire conduits, whereas glyphs you could create them with a scribe, or you could buy them on the auction house, and they were easily switched with a reagent. So not that much different. Complaining about Conduit Energy is another reason kind of complaint, something that adds weight to a series of criticisms that carry significantly greater weight.
Right now, Final Fantasy XIV is actively dunking on World of Warcraft. Names in the WoW community are actually engaging with that game now, and if they aren't asking about the game, they're playing it. Loads of us are. Even some of us are doing sponsored streams, and that shows a degree of community targeting from Squeenix.
According to the website mmopopulation.com, it is 100% true. Final Fantasy XIV is the top dog for the first time on that MMO list. Question is the data accurate as far as the numbers go? I don't know. Belluar doesn't know either. And even if we do attach a 10% margin of error, Final 14 still etches out ahead of Shadowlands. I'll even concede mmopopulation.com's numbers are in the right ballpark. I still believe Belluar is looking at the facts through what I call kaleidoscope analysis. Belluar is massaging the data and fidgeting with the bookends to support a certain narrative. Here are 3 pieces of information to prove my point. Square Enix recently offered a huge sale on Final Fantasy XIV. They restructured their new player access package. Think old school WoW war chest rather than separately purchasing each XPAC. And they gave 30 days free game time. And basically, here's the kicker, 60% discount on Final Fantasy XIV. Great promotion. And the timing is nothing less than perfect. But ask yourself this question. Does Final Fantasy XIV pass a tumbleweed town like Shadowlands on what may or may not be an accurate MMO poll if the 60% discount doesn't exist? Let's be real. Yes, Shadowlands has been on life support for the past few months. So of course, a fair amount of bored, out of their minds WoW players are going to give Final Fantasy XIV and other MMOs a shot, especially if their friends do. And there is a fat discount on the game, 60%. Here's a great example of why Belluar is presenting a very unfair comparison. When I worked in Wall Street in the late 90s, my brilliant company decided the best possible time, send a customer survey. How are we doing survey to all the customers? They sent this survey at the bottom of the market. The feedback they received back could be considered a felony in 49 out of 50 states. If Belluar ran the comparison 6 months ago, Shadowlands comes in at 7.2 million subs, and Final Fantasy comes in at 1.8 million. In my humble, ignorant opinion, that is flat out and unquestionably dunking, and I mean dunking, on Final Fantasy XIV. It's simply not fair to compare two MMOs in different cycles with different timelines. Want to compare the launch month of Final Fantasy's new XPAC Endbringers in the fall with Shadowlands launch month? Go for it. The watermark is 7.2 million. Let me know how you do. But when you start a celebration based on the score in the second quarter of a game, and there's 4 quarters in the game, that's unfair, plain and simple. It's unfair. When counting WoW's active subs, do you count WoW Classic and Burning Crusade Classic? No doubt Shadowlands lost more subs to Burning Crusade Classic than Final Fantasy XIV. Another good indicator of a game's health and growth, like it or not, is Twitch TV. I've been popping on Twitch and looking at the numbers consistently over the last couple of months. Final Fantasy XIV comes in around 4 to 6K every single time. WoW's numbers right now are kind of murky, kind of funky, because WoW Classic, Burning Crusade are all lumped in there together with Shadowlands. Nonetheless, let me make this point because this is a fact. Hearthstone, Overwatch, basically dunk on Final Fantasy XIV regularly, week after week. Randomly go check for yourself on Twitch. For those of you who've listened to this rebuttal up and until now, I salute you, and I extend my sincerest thanks. Your attentiveness means one of two things, or maybe both. 1, somewhere in the video I made a little bit of sense. 2, you're concerned about WoW's future much in the same way I am, and believe it or not, Belluar truly is. I understand if you put your thoughts out there, you're essentially hanging out your laundry to dry. And whenever you do that, people are going to question and even ridicule your taste in wardrobe. If there's one principle I'm willing to go to the mattresses to defend, it's free speech. Belluar can overdose on X-Lax, dump on WoW, and evangelize Final Fantasy XIV in another 52 videos. I don't care. What do I know? Maybe Belluar truly needs to upload 72 more why WoW really, really, really sucks videos. Maybe the creative process of dumping on WoW is therapeutic for Belluar. I have absolutely no problem with that. Do whatever you need to bring out the sun on a cloudy day, or in Belluar's case, vice versa. Here's where I do have a little bit of a problem. Belluar is not dumping on WoW on his main channel. Oh, no. That would be a very bad idea. He's doing it on his second channel. A good question would be why? The reason that I can only see is Belluar can't upset hardcore WoW fans who tune in to his channel, to his main channel, for WoW gaming news and WoW lore, because they support him through Patreon. Can't disturb that money flow. So essentially here, Belluar is being disingenuous for the sake of money, which is exactly what he criticizes Blizzard for doing. That's called irony, folks. I am certain Belluar will argue Blizzard doesn't know this, or can't understand that, or can't see the forest from the trees, blah, 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 blah. No. They know exactly what they're doing. They're putting money over fun and the good of the game. And Belluar is doing the same exact thing. Blizzard's dire need for a wake-up call is where I strongly agree with Belluar. They need to stop slam dunking the snooze button, stop dreaming about the glory days of Wrath of the Lich King, wake up, brew a pot of coffee or two, pull an all-nighter, and deliver their loyal fans true greatness once again. Make no mistake, Blizzard is capable of creating something truly great, much in the same way they did with Wrath of the Lich King and Legion. And the same exact thing can be said about Belluar and Company. Throughout BFA, Belluar consistently uploaded informative, fair, objective videos with a high production value, all of which pretty much criticize World of Warcraft. Where the hell is that version of Belluar hiding now? I'd really like to know, because I'm 100% confident I could win a hide-and-go-seek world championship with Belluar's current hiding spot. Belluar is a highly influential WoW content creator, the kind of influence that can implement change. What I fail to understand is why people like Belluar don't rally the masses, create a detailed petition of legitimate grievances, and challenge Blizzard to greatness. Hey, guess what? That same exact approach worked a few years ago and helped make WoW Classic a reality. But no, Belluar prefers to bitch and complain about things in WoW that have been in the game in one form or another since the first day he downloaded World of Warcraft. Yes, over the years, WoW did change, but I strongly believe Belluar's perspective changed a lot more. When you like something or someone, you're gonna find reasons why you like it. And when you don't, the opposite is true as well. It's human nature. I'm not immune. You're not immune. No one's immune. Maybe the underlying truth here is Belluar is bored with WoW and he's perfectly willing to toss out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe he grew bigger than WoW. After all, he does believe World of Warcraft is a small game produced by a small company. Maybe the game doesn't suit his purpose anymore. Maybe he's insanely frustrated with Blizzard. That's something I can understand. You know, an overdose of empty promises from Blizzard, XPAC after XPAC after XPAC, can easily have that kind of effect on any given fan. Whatever the truth may be, I can understand and respect all the aforementioned possibilities and even more. I really do understand it. But when you shoot your mouth off without doing minimal research, and you've got a team of people to delegate that kind of work to, I have a big problem with that. When you're not fair with Blizzard or the WoW community, both of whom in an indirect way help make you what you are today in a small way, I have a big problem with that. When your biases shine so goddamn bright, I gotta wear shades just to listen to your voice, I got another problem with that. And when in the recent past, you uploaded tons of videos demonstrating an abundance of research, fairness, objectivity, and then suddenly you betray that, I can't help but push aside my own personal frustrations towards Blizzard and present you with a challenge for greatness again. Thank you for watching. If you're going to leave a like on a video, leave it on the next video of mine that you do watch. It helps out the channel. It's all I ask, and I'll leave you with a final thought. Whatever it is by you, whether it's morning or it's afternoon or it's night, make your day epic.